Many of the largest desalination plants in the world are based on thermally driven processes. These plants are mainly found in North Africa and the Gulf states, and they're generally processes that are driven in parallel to some type of thermoelectric power plant. So to give you an example, there's a technology called multi-stage flash distillation. And in that system, seawater is taken through a series of small pressure drops, and at each pressure drop, some of the water flashes into vapor. The vapor is condensed on incoming seawater that's entering the system, preheating the seawater. And then at the high end of the system, you have steam heating that tops off the water and raises its temperature to something in the range of, say, 90 degrees C or so. This technology is well understood, it's robust, but it is relatively inefficient on an energetic basis. And the water that it produces is relatively costly, say on the order of $2 per cubic meter. There are a couple of things that could be done to improve the economics of this process. And there's research here happening at MIT on each of these aspects. One issue is the question of the precipitation of scales, scale-forming compounds from the seawater onto the heat exchanger surfaces. This type of scale formation, which is mainly calcium sulfate scale, becomes very pronounced as the temperature of the seawater is taken above 100 degrees C or so. And eventually, to control scale formation requires technology that is uneconomical. The result is that these plants are rarely taken to top temperatures of more than 100, 110 degrees C. Thermodynamically, their efficiency would be much higher if we could get the top temperature to a higher level. And we could produce more water for a given amount of energy if we had higher inlet temperatures. So the challenge there is, how do you prevent the formation of scales on heat transfer surfaces? One of my colleagues, Professor Kripa Varanasi in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, has been looking at nano-engineered surface coatings that prevent the nucleation of scales on the surfaces of the heat exchangers. He's been fairly successful in producing technology of this type to prevent ice formation, and some of that work may be applied to airplane wings to prevent frost buildup. But similar concepts appear to be applicable to the prevention of scale in the heat transfers, on the heat transfer surfaces. Kripa's been working on this, and this is, an area where if he makes the necessary progress, he will be able to radically alter the performance of systems of that type. A second example of work at MIT that would assist that has to do with the question of how much heat you divert from the power plant to heat seawater. So if I'm burning a fuel in the power plant, essentially I have a choice. I can use that energy to make steam that will drive a turbine to produce electricity, or I can bleed off some of that steam and use it to do the heating in the desalination plant. If I can do that dynamically in response to other variables, I might be able to improve the overall economics of the plant. For example, make more electricity when I can sell electricity for a higher price, or make more water when the price of electricity is lower. So Professor Alexander Mitsos, also in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, has been looking at the question of how you optimize the trade-offs between power and water production in thermal distillation plants. He's looked at plants such as I just described. He's looked at multi-effect distillation plants, which is a slight variation on the multi-stage flash. And he's looked at the combination where you put, say, a multi-effect distillation plant and a reverse osmosis plant together with the power production. So these are areas where research at MIT is taking what appeared to be a cut-and-dried technology and advancing the state of the art with the hope that we'll be able to make water for less money and less energy.